Yes, brother. Fadl.
Brother, I'm glad to mention about Algeria. The people who done that, I read the article last week. The Algerian government brought some foreigners. They found some of them Christian, do these murder. They pay them money, and they accuse the Muslim, and always they make it unknown. But of some of them, the Muslim, they hold them during masquerades and whatever. They found them a Christian, not Muslim. I want to tell the Muslim about that.
Yeah. Well, the brother is mentioning about the very confusing situation there in Algeria. And unfortunately, there are these different groups, and he's reporting that there was a Christian group. But what I've heard is these mafioso groups, these mafias. They're drug dealers who are on drugs and they sell drugs, thugs. And they're used by the system, to punish the people who support the Islamic movement. Okay, Allah knows best. Any other questions anybody has? I want you to mention afterwards that the tapes are on sale. Yeah. Because a lot of the topics are there. Yeah. They want to get that. Yes, brother.
For our Muslim brothers, do you have any strong message?
Yeah.
As the Prophet ﷺ said, "من لم يهتم بأمور المسلمين فليس منهم." So we have to.
Well, I think in terms of what we can do, that we have to try to get information. Proper information, from the ground itself, whatever part of the Muslim world it is, to hear from the people themselves what is going on in their country. And it is good to invite speakers to come in from the countries themselves who can actually explain to the community what is going on. We can get information from another source. And if there's any way to help in relief efforts and whatever, it is also possible to help. Some situations are very confusing ones. But whatever that you can do materially, whatever you can lift up your voice, however you can help. We have to try to be concerned with the plight of Muslims all over the world. I think it's a very good point. Yes, brother.
What do you feel about the possibilities of a caliphate or some type of central leadership of Muslims in the world? Is that something?
Well, I believe in the words of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And I believe that this hadith, it is authentic in its isnad, in its chain, and I believe that this will eventually come about. And you can see people in the Muslim world are now getting more consciousness. And there are countries who want to be ruled underneath Islamic law. The problem is it's been a long time since we actually were able to practice Islam. We were underneath foreign domination. And there's a lot of changes that's gone on in the world now with technology. So there's this storming that has to go on. And people, the people who understand the book, who understand Islamic scholarship, have to sit with those who understand the changes in the world and bring about that type of society that would keep us within the laws of Allah, but would also make us relevant to the issues that we are facing in the world. But inshallah, I believe that eventually it will come. When it comes, Allah knows best. Allah knows best. One thing about Muslims though, we are a group that we always move in a jama'ah, in a group. If one Muslim does something, like everybody wants to do it, like. So if some Muslim country gets an Islamic state, you better watch out, man. Everybody will want to get it, especially if it's successful, right? If it brings peace in the society and people can live in a decent way and practice their Islam, people will want that, man. Because we want to be in a society with no drugs, no prostitution, no racism, things like that. We would love to have a society like this. The question is, we always blame the West, CNN, etc., for many of our problems. Don't you think we as Muslims should take the responsibility? I agree completely. The person who wrote this is why I said that the real deception is within ourselves. And that Allah says He will not change the condition of a people until they change that which is in themselves. He didn't say change all the things outside. He said change what's in yourself. And that's the first stage that Muslims have to go through. That is the stage. And please, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying everything on CNN is wrong. I'm not saying it's haram, prohibited to watch the CNN. Don't get me wrong, right? But I'm just saying that many times, when you get the news, it is one-sided or it's not factual in terms of what actually goes on the ground. And there's an agenda. There's a certain a slant that the news does take. And unfortunately, normally news, about Islam is not, good news. It's always something negative. We have a group, we applied for a government charitable status, and it's Islamic Social Services. And the people wrote us back and they said, Islamic Social Services? Like, how can the two words go together? If you said Islamic jihad, Islamic terrorism, Islamic bomb, yes. But Islamic social services, you feed the poor? You take care of children? Yeah, but then when we explain what it is, it's our spirituality, man. It's our spirituality. Okay, it's nothing to do with all this politics, the things that you're seeing. The question is covering the face fard? Is it compulsory? No, it is not compulsory. The majority of the scholars, including the great scholars of the four schools of thought, have not made it compulsory on women to cover their face. The Jamhur position is that she should cover everything except the face and the hands. That is the majority position. Although it is permissible, it is the practice of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, and some of the women in the Prophet's time did do it, and it is permissible for a woman if out of modesty she wants to cover her face. Next is, what do you think about the West trying to introduce its own brand of Islam under the New World Order? Black and white Muslims. Yes, this unfortunately is part of the confusion that is going on. And I don't know how it is in Miami, but if you're up in New York City, they have a new leader every week, man. They have Khalifas and Mahdis and Mujaddids and prophets and everybody running around. Okay, so it's the problem that is happening within this type of a situation. And unfortunately, there are groups that have popped up in the Muslim world, and this is not just right now, in the past few hundred years and even before, that have claimed prophethood, and they've brought in very bizarre forms of cult life, and they said it was Islam. It says, can you talk briefly on the way the government in Spain treated non-Muslim minorities compared to the way the later Christian governments treated Muslims? Yes, I was mentioning that within the golden age of Islam, that Christians, Muslims, and Jews were allowed to study, and they were actually part of even like the government courts, and they were intellectuals and scholars and whatever, and it was allowed within a society. It was a very open society in that sense. Islam was the rule of life, but it was a very open society. Unfortunately, even though they were so tolerant, they had to go through the Spanish Inquisition, which came on later on, 14th, 15th, 16th century, even later than that to a certain extent, where people were put at the stake. They were put in front of an inquisitor, and if you're not a Catholic, you were Jewish, you were Muslim, or anything else, they'll burn you at the stake. And so hundreds and thousands of people died by fire, or they were driven out of their homes in that time. It's really a sad period in history to read, what happened, even though, there were great achievements in Spain. Sometime in Spain, we have to be honest, there were some rulers in Spain who were tyrants too, Muslims. It wasn't all good, right? We have good and bad. But we have a revival. That's one thing, we have tajdeed. So they had tajdeed in Spain. Al-Murabitun, Al-Muwahhidun. Groups came in and they made tajdeed, they revived the original Islamic teachings. Next question is, what is the end of the story regarding the scholar who was looking for the Muslim wife? How did he choose his wife? That's a very good question. Actually, that the historian who was telling us never really told us the end of the story. He just said that, the Khalifa eventually did get married. I think that was the last condition he put. But he did eventually get married, but I never really heard, what was the final outcome. What was the important part of the story was that it showed how much scholarship that the women had in Spain at that time. Next it says, can you give some information regarding what Halloween means to non-Muslims? For those who want a detailed look at that, Sound Vision has released a tape here. It's called Holiday Myths. And in this tape, I'm giving you an overview of the nature-based religions that influenced the teachings of Jesus, peace be upon him. And you find the discussion concerning Christmas and the winter solstice, Easter and the spring solstice, and Halloween, which was actually the end of the year and the new year before. The day of Samhain, tonight is supposed to be the day of the Lord of the Dead. And many people used to believe that the souls of the dead people would come to the surface, and they were very afraid, and they put bonfires, and some even covered their faces with masks so they wouldn't be terrorized by the ghosts who might come to the surface. And so it was a night really where the focus was on evil. So when the Christian church came in, they made All Saints Day, which is November 1st, or All Hallows Day, and the evening before became All Hallows Evening, which became All Halloween. What you see today, trick-or-treating, is just American business. This is what this has become like. This is American business acumen, because this has become one of the best ways to make money quick. If you sell sweets and stuff to kids, it's a big billion-dollar enterprise or so now. But for Muslims, it's a very confusing time in a sense, because our literature, and even Christian literature, if you really go into it, and Jewish literature, talks about the devil as the open enemy of humanity. The devil is not our friend. And we're not supposed to play games and dress up like little devils and run around vampires, and especially begging. We don't send our children out to ask for things. Prophet, peace be upon him, said, Al-yad al-ulya khayran min al-yad al-sufla, that the upper hand is better than the lower hand. And so we don't teach our children to be begging for things, that they should be giving things. And the next problem is, even if you do get the candy, you don't know if it's halal or not, because there's pork products, byproduct, gelatin, glycerin, all these things inside the gummy type, candy things. And also we know that the rise of the Church of Satan, Anton Levy, the San Francisco-based Church of Satan, which is now spreading across America, and there are many Satanists who also, there's certain rituals that go on tonight in certain groups, and it's coming to the surface now, what's happening with these occult organizations. So it's actually dangerous. And you'll see, even in the Greater Society in Toronto, they had a whole page showing how to protect your children on Halloween, even for non-Muslims. So it really is getting dangerous, and there's some perverted people who are disguising themselves and carrying out their acts of perversion on this night. Very unfortunate. Yeah. Yes, sir.
One thing I'd like to ask you about the broader Muslim who come from the Middle East, from Palestine, Algeria, Morocco. They come to the United States, sell the alcohol, pork, all kinds. So they say they are Muslim. What do you say about that?
Well, as I said, many of the Muslims are caught up in deception. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. That this life is nothing but material deception. So many of us get caught up in that dream of winning the lottery or making money, and some people feel that they have to sell alcohol because if you don't, people won't come to your shop, and you have to sell the lottery in order to get business. They're just caught up. So even they'll take things that are haram because they think that they have to, because the dunya. And the more money you get is the more you want. So it's like a cycle. It's a vicious cycle that people get involved in with, get taken in money and spending money. And it is a form of deception. And unfortunately, many of the Muslims are caught up in this material deception in the society itself. May Allah guide them and guide us out of this deception. Yes, sir.
About the kids that come for trick or treat in your house, should you give them candy?
Well, this is a very good question. The opposite question is, what happens if people come to your house trick or treating? Now, basically, we try to stay out of these things altogether, really. And if you have the type of a house where you can shut your door and turn off the front lights, don't put a jack-o'-lantern in your window, right? And you turn your lights off, shut your door. Most people will just leave you alone.
Can you give them kosher thing like fried chips?
Well, I mean, okay. One question, the other question, can you give them halal chips? But the thing is still, I mean, see, but that gets into a thing now. Do you want to do it or not? Like one brother said, he wants a Christmas tree, so he's going to get a palm tree for Christmas, with dates hanging off it, and that's going to be his Christmas tree. No, man, if you don't get a Christmas tree, you don't get a Christmas tree. But we have to use wisdom. And there are some cases in very tight-knit communities where your neighbor is coming with the child. You know the people, you see them every day. The child is dressed like a little angel, right? And the child comes to the door. It's your neighbor, man. Okay, use your wisdom, open up the door, let him in, give him some halal cookies, and some milk. You don't have to give them, Halloween candy, but give them something, wholesome, nutritious, and tell them we have our own, thing. Even tell them, about, to watch out for the devil and what is our position on the devil. Give some dawah, be friendly to the people, in that case. But I think in general, it is wise for us, to try to avoid this as much as possible. You can close your door and turn off your lights and not be involved. I think it's the wisest situation.
if you dissuade children not to take part in Christian or Jewish or other traditions or activities, we must replace them with our own, because this is where we're failing. We are not working hard enough to do something for the youth. The other thing is that I don't see any institution that is gaining momentum or even starting to do something on a larger basis. It's all well and good that don't do or this, but you know, part of that, like brother said, some of them will still go to the hayat, to this hayat ghurur, or the life of this world, because there is nothing else to attract them or to keep them within. Because what I'm seeing now in the United States, a lot of our youth are marrying outside of their faith, and there is very little being done. I tell you my own personal incidents when I was a student in England. I was 16-year-old, and I used to play table tennis in a church club. And I used to be partnering with a girl, and we used to started talking. Immediately, the father came up to me that maybe he could convert, or what is he doing, and what faith he is, and what's going on. And this is important because we don't have where anybody's enough interest or sincerity to do something practical, to really look at the roots of the problem and try to cut them down from there, rather than look at the tree itself and say, oh, we'll take the fruit here and do this. But this has to be at the root level, because this is where we do not have, like in the Christianity, you have these fathers who do not marry, who go out into the word and who serve. Of course we do dawah, but is it the same level of dedication that we need? And this is where we're going to bring something to the youth, that they must serve, or we must start, or somebody should start, and we join hands. Because I don't see, well, I was going to ask your own institution exactly this is what you're doing, because you mentioned something, social services, and how we can help you or somebody else who is doing something, that we can be part of it, and we can do. If I not have the time, I could do with money, I could do with whatever way I could. I mean, we all want to do things, but sometimes we find that we're being foolish by going to the charities which are in name only. And this is where we have to establish something that is really authentic, and we can believe in, we can trust in, and we can support it. And this is what I would like something from you, maybe where we can put our energy and resources.
Right. Well, what the question is concerning the alternatives. If we are saying that you should not be involved in Halloween and in Christmas and other occasions, and what is the Islamic alternative? This is a very good question. And actually, I would invite you to come to the next two programs, which will be tomorrow night and Sunday morning. And you'll be hearing the announcements. We're dealing with the dilemma of Muslim youth, and also we're dealing with the importance of Islamic education and some alternatives. There we will have more time to really look at the issue and to discuss some actual practical alternatives to the problem we're facing. What I would like to say, since we're talking about holidays, is that the first thing we need to do is to put more emphasis on the Islamic holidays. Our Eid al-Fitr, our Eid al-Adha that we have, Muslims, some people go to work, man. They go to Eid prayer in the morning and they go to work. Afterward, the children don't even enjoy themselves on that day. So how do you expect the child not to want Christmas or not to want Halloween when you don't have a day where they can enjoy themselves and feel good about themselves, learn about their religion, eat food with other people, you know, get nice things? We have to put more emphasis as a community on the Eid and make the Eids to be memorable occasions for the young people, so that they would not need to have a Christmas tree or need to go trick-or-treating. Okay? Other alternatives in terms of recreation and other areas, inshallah, in the program coming, we will be speaking very seriously about some of the other alternatives, you know, concerning our thing. And one of the questions here, which I guess will be the last question? Last two questions. One is there any country in the Muslim world that you can give as an example of the Islamic New World Order? From my humble understanding of the Muslim world, I haven't seen or heard of any country that has really evolved into a proper Islamic state. There are some countries that have elements of Islam. There are some moving towards it, but there are none that have developed into what we have studied to be the Khilafat ala Minhaj al-Nubuwah. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would change our conditions so that we have that country. The question is that my family is Catholic. Is it allowed to enter their houses when they are when they're decorated with Christmas items? Well, you know, we should keep relations with our families. And you have to use your wisdom when you're dealing with people, you know, the traditions of the people who you came from. Because they raised you, right? You were a young child, they fed you, they clothed you. You have to respect them for that. So therefore, you know, I don't think it's wise to totally cut off our relationship with them. However, we should not participate in their ceremonies where shirk is involved, polytheism, where kufr, anything, eating big ham is put on the table, they're drinking rum, or they're putting wine inside of the pudding or the pie. We don't involve ourselves in any of the haram activities. However, min bab ad-da'wah, you know, with the intention of the da'wah, of spreading Islam, you can go to your family's house on certain occasions, spend some time with them, give them da'wah about Islam, show them a good example, and then, you know, after a while, then you leave. Because, you know, usually people are civil and they meet and they talk about family affairs, and then later on, then they start breaking out the bottles. As soon as that cork comes off, or that bottle comes, you say, Assalamu alaikum. You know, peace be upon you, I'm out of here. Then you have to leave, okay? So, you know, but I think we should keep relations with our families, because brothers and sisters have found that when they maintained a relationship, showed respect to the family, that it was a source of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guiding people within that family to Islam. So that you should maintain it, but try to stay out of their activities. Just walking in a place that has decorations, that in itself is not haram, Christmas decorations. Because I mean, the University of Miami might even have some things hanging up around, right? Christmas trees are everywhere. They're downtown. Okay, this is Miami. I don't know. Like in Toronto, it's everywhere, right? In the north, it's everywhere. It's the northern part. So you know, so I mean, just that being there is not haram unless the ceremonies, the food, haram food being taken in. So you know, we try to avoid as much as we possibly can. But at the same time, use your wisdom and maintain relations with your family. Okay? So I want to end here, and we'll have the announcement, inshallah, and anybody else can ask me some of the questions later. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim, wal 'asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Wa sallallahu ta'ala sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, wa akhir da'wana an alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.